Hey, this is Carolin Pilligrath of breathingtravel.com, and you're listening to the 360 Entrepreneur with Jan Ilunga.
This is episode 181, and today we talk about Instagram marketing and the digital nomad lifestyle. Here we go.
Welcome to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast, the show for entrepreneurs and small business owners who dream big and want to do bigger. Join some of the world's top entrepreneurs, internet marketers, and best-selling authors as they share their inspiring stories, their struggles, and give actionable tips that will help you build, grow, and promote your online business. Here's your host, Yanni Lunga.
Hey there, how's it going? You heard it, Yanni Lunga here, coming to you all the way from Helsinki, Finland. And today we really have an international episode because today's guest expert joins us all the way from Brisbane, Australia. And today you're going to get some advice on two things. One is the digital nomad lifestyle and working remotely. So you're going to get some tips for some of those things. And you're going to get some Instagram marketing advice. So if Instagram is your thing, or maybe you're just starting out on Instagram, this episode is definitely one you really want to bookmark. And we're joined by Carolin Pilligrath. She's a digital nomad, soul traveler, and Instagram marketing expert. The show notes for today's episode are over at yannilunga.com/episode 181. All right, without further ado, here is the interview with Carolin Pilligrath from breathingtravel.com. In this one, we are joined by somebody who I'm really excited that she's here with us because I've been connected with her. We were talking about this before starting the interview. I think we've been connected for something like a year, but it's the first time we speak. So I'm really pumped about that. She's a traveler, soul, digital nomad, content creator, and digital marketing expert. She's the founder of breathingtravel.com. The blog that takes you, first of all, around the world with her, and it also provides you with inspiration and tips on traveling and the digital nomad life. I'm so excited to welcome on the show Carolin Pilligrath. Carolin, wie geht's? How are you?
Hey, Jan, how are you? It's so nice to be here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm doing fantastic, and yeah, I had to ask you in German because I know you're originally from Germany, and I have to tell you I miss speaking German a bit, but I don't think I would be able to do this interview in German. Sorry.
That's okay. So nice though.
Okay, let's get started because I said it. You're a digital nomad. You're traveling quite a bit. You are really big on Instagram. And a question that I have to ask you, because it's always interesting to see how one ended up where one is today, is how did you become a digital nomad? Because I mean, it's one thing to enjoy traveling and traveling every now and then, but from there to become an actual digital nomad is a completely different thing.
For sure. Yeah, it totally is. For me, it just happened just over about 2 years ago. That's my little dog now in the background. Very nice. Putting on a show there. It started about 2 years ago, and I was working in marketing in Germany, and my contract ran out, and to be honest, I just wanted to get back on the road. Like, I've always traveled a lot, like before my studies, during my studies. So yeah, I was like, okay, I do marketing, for a company, for an agency in Germany, and I already done a lot of work from home, and so I'm like, maybe I could do that for other clients around the world and not be able to sit somewhere else and not be tied to an office. So I'm like, okay, contract ran out, booked a flight to Thailand, went to Chiang Mai for a couple of months, and, it's a big hub for digital nomads, and right. I wanted to see, like, what's it all about? How do people make a living? How do they do it? I had my blog. I just had started my blog, but I didn't really know much about how to build a website, how to do social media. I knew it obviously a little bit, but there was a steep learning curve to put it all together. And here I am now, 2 years later, still going.
and never stopping, right?
Well, that's what they say, but you never know. Like, obviously, I really enjoy this right now, and I don't make future plans or anything like that. Like many digital nomads, I think.
Right. Yeah. Well, actually, Carolin, there is one thing I want to ask you, and I asked the same question to Kat Loterzo some months ago, because I think that often when we think about the digital nomad life, the only things we think about are all the good things, right? Amazing, exotic places, having a lot of fun, blah, blah, blah. But if there is something you maybe don't like so much about being a digital nomad, if there is anything, what is that?
Well, as a digital nomad, you need a good internet connection. And, I get so upset when the internet connection is horrible, and in many, many places around the world, there's still not sufficient internet, and that means I technically can't go everywhere. So that would be definitely a big point. And of course, I miss my family. Like, they're still back in Germany, but I get to see them whenever I want to. If I want to go, I just book a ticket, and I think that is a downside, but can be an upside as well, because I can, be flexible and make time for them, and then spend a lot of time with them as well if I'm there.
Yeah, no, of course, that makes sense. And you said it, obviously, internet or an internet connection plays a big part. And if somebody is here with you now, Carolin, and maybe he or she is about to embark on what could become a path similar to yours. So somebody decides, okay, I want to become a digital nomad. Would you have any advice on some of the things one should think about or do or keep into consideration before, quote unquote, making the leap?
Yeah, what I would do when I start out, or anyone who wants to start out, I would recommend that you get into networking a lot. If you can, choose a place where there's like-minded people. That was what really helped me in the first place. I went to Chiang Mai. I suddenly had all these people, all these meetups, people who connected me to other people. I really saw how they did it, had lots of support, and I think that was the main, push, the main kick that I started off my journey, and I'm still going. So I really think network a lot, surround yourself with like-minded people. Even today, here in Brisbane, I go to co-working spaces. I love hanging out with people who have a similar mindset to me, who are entrepreneurs, who are freelancers and stuff. That is really my crowd of people, and it'll help a lot.
I love it. And is there a particular, I don't know, website or app that you use to find co-working spaces, or that one could use to look for co-working spaces in a city or a place one is about to go to?
Instagram. Back to that one. I like to, there's hashtags around digital nomad communities and whatnot. I like to research on Instagram for that, and you get all those pretty pictures. Exactly how people work there, how the workspace looks, even how they pour their coffee and whatnot. So that is really nice, and I use Instagram a lot for many things, and to find co-working spaces, cafes.
I love it. And, it's not really a surprise, Carolin, that you mentioned Instagram, because I know that Instagram or the world of Instagram is really your bread and butter. And I know you have some tips for us, and we're going to talk about Instagram in the second part of the conversation. But before we do that, I want to ask you about what's in your suitcase. I mean, sure, I know you probably have sun lotion, sunglasses, all those kind of
Yes.
things. But for people who are here with you and I, who maybe would like to start work remotely, work from different places around the world, are there some things that you have with you that you think are essentials when it comes to running a business from pretty much anywhere in the world? Can be apps, it can be actual items. I mean, I know obviously you mentioned an internet connection, so we would probably need a laptop. What else?
Yeah, definitely. All those things. I have I never travel without my camera. Obviously, I like to take photos, and I have a really nice Sony compact camera, which I really love. I use GoPro a lot too. And yeah, as for apps, like I really like my everyday app, which I always use. Trello, like organizes my whole, work, and my whole workflow is documented in it. What's happening for me, for my clients, it's really important. That's what I use all the time. Many people like on my back to Instagram see that I use a neat little app called Momentum, which is like a screen, a Chrome extension, which it gives you some pretty screens and where you can track your to-dos, and yeah, it's very inspirational. I really like it. I actually have a whole list of resources on my blog which I use, and there's tons more. Like I try out new things all the time, and it's ongoing and ever changing, this list. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, thank you, Carolin, for mentioning those couple of things. And you mentioned the complete list of the resources, and I'll make sure, like in every episode, to link to that and everything else we cover in the show notes. And you talked about the importance of always, at least in your case, of always trying out different things. And you mentioned Momentum. So you said it is a Google Chrome extension. And I have to give you kudos, say thank you, because I actually found out about Momentum through you, and I've been using it as well, and it is a lot of fun. And as you said, it's really inspirational because basically whenever we open a new tab on Chrome, we see a landscape, and then there is a quote of the day, which is really inspiring, and then we can also add our to-do list there, so we can always have a reminder of what we have to do for the day, which is really exciting. And you mentioned you have a camera, and if I'm not mistaken, you also have details about that on your site, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure it's in my resources as well. It's a Sony camera, compact camera.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll double check and I'll make sure to include the right link. Well, Carolin, I mean, we have talked a little bit about what it means to be a digital nomad. You share some of your advice. We've talked about a couple of apps. And before we change gear and we talk about Instagram, I have to ask you for this, because obviously you have been in so many places, but I'm sure you've also been in some places that maybe were kind of different than what you expected. So of all the places you've been at, if you were to choose, okay, I cut you some slack. If you were to choose 2 or 3 destinations that really impressed you, that you really like, and you would go back in a heartbeat, what would those places be?
Well, Australia, where I am right now. Obviously, I really love Australia. Would come back anytime. Bali, I was very surprised. I traveled to Bali a couple of times before. I'm like, yeah, this is all right. And then I think it was the start of this year, I traveled to Bali again. I'm like, oh, wow, this is actually pretty amazing. So, I had my falling in love with Bali a bit late, but I would go back at any time. Like I stayed in and around Canggu, which is a really nice area right by the ocean. You go surfing every day. You work from a co-working space, which has a pool and is like 5 steps down to the ocean. It's amazing. Yeah, and then probably also Chiang Mai, because that's where it all started.
Nice, nice. Thank you for sharing those with us. And I know that on your blog, you have different guides for different places, different cities. So if you're here with Carolin and I, and you would like to learn more about the places she has been at, make sure to check out the show notes, because there you find the link to everything. So you can dive into a place you maybe are thinking on visiting that is on your map. And Carolin, we said it, Instagram is something I know that you love, is something you help your clients with, is something you use every single day. And I think that for digital nomads, for people who travel a lot, it's kind of a no-brainer. But I know that Instagram can also be very powerful for entrepreneurs, even those who may not be on the road all the time. My first question to you when it comes to Instagram is, if there is somebody here with you and I who's thinking, Instagram, yes, no, what would you tell them? Why Instagram?
Instagram, because, well, first and foremost, it's very visual. Like I mentioned before, you can dive in like right into places, see what the co-working space looks inside, and I think it's really incredible. What I use Instagram for is inspiration, obviously, to find inspiration, to inspire people in return, to find places, to connect to people. I actually made a lot of, friends who, people who become friends when we meet in person, but we initially connected over Instagram because, I don't know, they shoot me a message or something like that. Yeah, and then suddenly we end up in the same place. For example, right now here in Brisbane, I was connected to a startup called Travello, and they're a social network for travelers. So they're a Brisbane-based startup, and we connected like about like a year and a half ago. And one of the founders reached out over Instagram and did some beta testing for them, and then when I came to Brisbane, I'm like, oh, actually, we should catch up for a coffee. So we caught up, and pretty much they introduced me to the whole co-working scene, to the startup scene here in Brisbane, which is really damn amazing. It's crazy how those connections over Instagram can actually transfer into something that is real life.
Carolin, I love what you just said, for the fact that you made using Instagram really a no-brainer for every single person who's here with you and I, because you could have talked about how great it is for expressing your visual creativity and all those kind of things, but actually you talked about the networking aspect of Instagram. So you said it is the tool you have used to connect with many people, some of whom now are friends you've met in person. And that's, for example, how you and I connected, I think like months ago or a year ago. You made the example of you connecting with the Brisbane-based startup, which I love. So if maybe you are here with Carolin and I know you have looked at Instagram only as a place for sharing images, and you've been, well, that's not really my thing. I'm pretty sure that Carolin, by the end of this episode, is gonna convince you to give a second look at Instagram. And Carolin, I know you wrote some time ago literally a step-by-step guide to the first 1,000 followers?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I have to ask you about that, because actually, I can do this live if I go to Instagram. Okay. So right now you have over 15,000 followers. Which means that Instagram, a bit about Instagram at least. So obviously, the guide, as I said, it's really step by step. So you provide in-depth information, and we could be here the entire week talking about that. Yeah. So if you were to take a couple of tips from the guide, what would you say? If somebody's starting out with Instagram, what are some of the, tips or best practices you have to share?
Yeah, the first one would be to be consistent. So many people struggle to post every single day. Like, I really recommend, if you want to get into Instagram and if you want to build a following, you have to be consistent. This is for every social network. You have to continuously shoot out content because otherwise people are not going to see it. And people struggle, they're like, okay, 1 week they post every day, and then the second week they're every second day, and then, they lose it because they don't see it happening so fast. But you just have to keep going. That would be my first advice. My second one would be to actually engage with people, if you like a photo, comment on it. If you seen a story and you don't know where the place is, but you'd like to know, send a message. Do little bits and pieces and engage with those people you relate to, who are in your niche. And who you want to be in touch. You never know what happens when it comes out. Maybe you end up, I don't know, working together, or you do something together, promote yourself. It'll be really get in there, engage, make it personal. Don't have, standard comments send out to everyone, or like I get those standard messages, which I used to get on Twitter. Now they're happening on my Instagram.
Great profile. Check out mine.
Yeah, so not very impressed with that. So really would say you're going to reach the most if you're personally engaging.
I love it. Thank you, Carolin, for sharing those with us. And I mean, one of the things you touched on is the importance of consistency. And I think that's probably what differentiates you and other people who are really kind of getting the most out of Instagram from everybody else, and people like me who sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm really gonna dive into it. But then it happens. When you were talking, Carolin, I really felt as if you were describing me, because that's what happens. I start maybe like every day or even a couple of posts per day, and then it becomes every couple of days, and then every week, and then I'm like, So I know that you've also written an article that can be very useful for all the people who are in my situation, because in that article you talk about how to continuously find content to share on Instagram. So can you share some of the advice you shared there? So what are some of the things we can do to make sure that we have content and we can really use Instagram on a regular basis?
For sure. Just one more point to touch back on the last point. If you're really losing the continuous posting, I would really recommend build yourself a schedule. If you can, I don't know, use Buffer or later, Hootsuite, whatnot, and then it just gets pushed to your phone, and you already have it in there. You don't have to do anything but press publish, and you just set it out once a week or once every fortnight, and that'll do the job sort of for you. And that's I think very, very helpful for many social media channels, because we obviously can't be there like every day at the exact hour to post ourselves.
Right. Hashtag no excuses.
Exactly.
Okay, well, thank you. So you mentioned a couple of tools again. You'll find everything Carolin and I are talking about in the show notes.
Yeah, and to touch back on your creating content, how to continuously create Instagram content. What I do is I reuse a lot of photos from like trips. I've just been to New Zealand last month, for example. I still, in that time frame, I was there for 7 days. I could not post all the photos in that short time frame. So I still reuse photos. I look back, I curate them, I put them in different, my little dog. Just, use what you already have, and publish that, again, curate it.
Okay, sounds good. So to really leverage what we may already have in our arsenal, and really think about creative ways we can repurpose that. And one of the things you're going to find in the show notes is the link to Carolin's Instagram, because the best way to learn more about Instagram is to actually follow people like Carolin that you can learn from. And you find her at Breeding Travel. So if you're enjoying this conversation, if you want to connect with her, if you want to give her a shout out, you find her on Instagram at Breeding Travel. And if you start to really look at Carolin's profile as a profile to learn from, you're gonna see some of the things she talked about. For example, she will reuse some of the pictures from past travels and things like that, so you can do the same. And Carolin, one of the things you touched on early on when I asked you about finding co-working spaces, you mentioned Instagram and you mentioned digital nomad specific hashtags. So hashtags are a very powerful tool, however, are often misused. Hashtag research is often done the wrong way. And I know that that's one of the topics you also tackle. So do you have any hashtag research tips for us?
Exactly. I do, obviously. Yes.
Sure.
Yes. So how I think about hashtags, well, they're really useful not only to find, for example, co-working spaces or digital nomad related things, but to also, if you're posting yourself, to increase your visibility and to increase your engagement, possibly. Mm-hmm. If you use your hashtags right, what I mean by use your hashtags right is that, for example, you know what you use your hashtags for. You don't just go and hashtag, for example, sunshine, or you say smoothie. What are you going to express with that? Well, it's useless because those hashtags, for example, they have a really large volume of postings. I think your goal with a hashtag is to increase your visibility, and that goal would be tied to appearing in the top posts, hopefully. Mm-hmm. So to get through those top posts, you have to choose hashtags which have like less volume, which you're more likely to show up, more likely to get into the top 9 photos. What I like to do is when I look for hashtags is that I do it very place specific. Mm-hmm. So here in Brisbane, obviously, there's a lot of, hashtags around Brisbane, Brisbane any day. And then, there's a couple of more around that. And then also make it a bit more precise. For example, if you're at a cafe, to actually, use related tags which have been tagged by other people who've been to that cafe. So I look in the place and try and see what other people, hopefully other influencers, other people who have maybe bigger accounts as well, hashtagged. And what else? I think the other thing is really as for post volume, when I'm talking about that, it's, you don't want to use a hashtag that it has maybe, 100 posts in there, because if you hashtag that, okay, you might appear on the top posts, but then only 100 people have hashtagged that, and potentially only 100 people are gonna, search for that as well. So that's not a lot. So I like to use sort of between 10,000 up to 500,000 in a volume.
Okay, that's pretty good advice. Thank you, Carolin. And I think it's good that you explain that, because I think that often when we think about increasing our visibility, we just think, the more popular the hashtag, the better. But as you said, it's not always the case. And you touched on something that I want to ask you, because I think you do very well on Instagram, which is mentioning others. And here's what I mean. I think, as I said, that you do this very well, that you would, for example, let's say if you have an ice cream at a specific ice cream shop or something like that, you would definitely say, so in your caption, you would say something like enjoying a delicious ice cream at, and then you would tag the place. So can you talk for a second about, at mentioning, places we're at or other people and what that can do on Instagram?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you, for example, tag a ice cream place and that ice cream place is on Instagram, well, you're very likely to be reposted. And say the cafe has, I don't know, 50,000 followers, you'd be exposed to a much bigger audience than yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So really use that. I mean, there's a couple of, say for travel, there's a couple of accounts that curate like travel shots, which travel bloggers like to tag. So, in hopes of getting like a shout out, a regram. So I think that is really useful to do because you can increase your reach even more through that. And then also sometimes actually when you go to an account and you can actually see who's tagged, like it's the photos of you. Mm-hmm. So you can actually see sometimes, people even tag me in their photos because they want me to regram them. And then you can exactly see who else is in the game, who else is tagged that account.
Love it. Thank you so much, Carolin. I think you have really given us a crash course on Instagram. And as I said earlier, hashtag no excuses, because really there are no more excuses after this conversation for not tapping into Instagram. And I want to ask you for a second about Instagram stories.
Sure.
Because I know that they are a relatively new feature on Instagram and they're becoming very, very popular. And I have to say, I'm really a big fan of Instagram stories, even though I've just started using it. So for all the people who are here with you and I, could you, number one, say what Instagram stories are? Because not everybody could be familiar with that. And number two, to maybe share a couple of examples of how you use Instagram stories so that we can learn from that.
For sure. Instagram stories is basically the Snapchat feature for Instagram. Right. As funny as it sounds, and people just like to make that connection, but I think that's pretty much self-explanatory. You can do little snaps or videos on Instagram and just upload it to your story. It's available for 24 hours. Other people can view it. And I just like to use it for I use it for behind the scenes stuff which I don't feel they're worthy to be on my profile like all the time, stuff which maybe happen in the moment, events I go to, and then I think it's really great to actually see who tunes in as well. I think this gives people, especially say influencers, bloggers, businesses, gives another measurement of engagement, right? Because if people actually tune in and watch my story, I can directly see who it is, and I mean there's no robots that can comment or like or anything like that. They're real people tuning in, so I think that's a really good measurement of engagement, additionally to what's out there.
Love it. Thank you, Carolin. And I like the fact that you talked about the concept of giving people behind the scenes access to what you may be working on or what's happening. And you said it's also content that you may not necessarily want to have on your profile, quote unquote, forever, but even just for a short period of time. So if you're here with Carolin and I, you heard about different reasons why you should look into Instagram, different ways to learn Instagram, to use Instagram, whether that's images, stories, videos. There are different ways to learn. And again, I said it in the show notes, you're going to find the links to Carolin's resources so that you have the help there that you can access whenever you like. And also you find her site, breedingtravel.com, and her Instagram at breathing travel. And Carolin, this has been such a fun conversation. I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Jan. Really appreciate it. I love sharing my knowledge. Hit me up anytime. Like I'm really happy to reply to messages. Instagram is the fastest, as you can expect. Otherwise, I reply to email and Twitter as well. So.
Awesome. So there is different ways to get in touch with you. And to wrap it up, do you have any final tip or anything you would like to share with us? Something you have coming up? Anything at all?
I'm in the process of putting together a bit of a course on Instagram #research because I think many people don't know how to use them yet. So it'll be spreading my knowledge as well as giving a bit of a guideline to how to conduct Instagram #research, how to make it effective, so people can actually increase their visibility and their engagement. So that is sort of still happening behind the scenes. I got a little bit of a landing page up right now, so you can sign up at the bottom and you'll be notified once I release the course. And I'll be really excited to share my # knowledge with you guys. And
Love it. Thank you, Carolin. So you heard it. You're going to find the link also to that landing page in the show notes, so that if you want to learn more about how you can leverage the power of hashtags on Instagram this smart way, you're going to learn that through Carolin Pilligrath's upcoming course. Carolin, again, thank you so much for being here, for telling us more about your travels, for telling us about Instagram. And actually, there is one thing I almost forgot to ask you. Can you tell everybody what they can find on your blog, breathingtravel.com?
For sure. So on Breathing Travel, you find anything from travel tips, places I've been to, little guides, travel guides. There is a digital nomad specific category where I talk about stuff that digital nomads like to know. So like internet connections and cafes and co-working spaces and whatnot. I also write a bit about productivity, social media, obviously Instagram, and and a little bit of inspiration as well.
Love it. So that's breathingtravel.com. Thank you, Carolin. I really appreciate you.
No worries.
And we are back. Carolin, danke. Thank you so much for being here. I had such a great time talking to you. And thank you for sharing your digital nomad and Instagram marketing tips with all of us. And you heard it. Carolin is working on a brand new #research course for Instagram. So if you are on Instagram and if you are serious about Instagram, you want to grow your Instagram, you heard it. She has this post with the step-by-step guide to your first 1,000 followers, which is the perfect place to start. But if you want to really unlock the power of hashtags on Instagram, then you have to make sure to check out her course. The show notes page for today, with the links to everything Carolin and I have talked about, is over at janilunga.com/episode 181. So make sure to head over there so that you find the link to Carolin's site, to the course, to her Instagram profile, and everything else we have covered in today's episode. This is it for this week. Again, thank you so much for joining Carolin Pilligrath and I in this global conversation, and I'll be back with you next week. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the 360 Entrepreneur Podcast. For more tips and tools, head over to www.janilunga.com.